Hi, my name's Jonathan. I'll be going through Punchline, which is a content creation site for comedy creators specifically, for them to sign up and upload their content so that they're not subject to algorithms. This is a little bit different from Patreon in the sense that it offers a specific type of creator, that flexibility, and it doesn't charge the same premiums that Patreon does, and it's a little bit more flexible in the way that you can set up your tiers. I'll be walking you through the prototype, which is the concepts and wireframe through early stage development and then late stage development all the way to a minimum viable product. And then at the end, I'll do a brief showcasing of what the product currently looks like in sight. So as far as concepts and wireframes go, I wanted to do something a little bit simple, but it ended up expanding a little bit as I thought more about the project. The wireframe there, you can see, is already pretty complicated, and we'll talk a little bit about how complicated it gets, but I had to do some fancy code to try to figure things out. Right there at Brax Jewelers is an example of a link tree. I wanted something that was a little bit more robust than Linktree, but that buttonology and that styling is something that I thought, oh, that looks good. Let me implement that. And then, of course, up there you can see a little bit of the color palette that I went with, as well as the overall theme and direction of the site. On the left-hand side, you see some of the early stage development, some of those prototypes. They don't look great, and a lot of the functionality isn't there. This is screenshots from my CodePen early on. I did most of the coding in CodePen as instead of an IDE. And if I were to change, again, I don't know that I would, just because you can see things so easily as they're coming together in CodePen. So it is my preferred method for implementing all the code that I did. There's messy navigation systems, broken links, and it ended up being a programming nightmare, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Right here is the late stage development, and currently I have sort of a minimum viable product. I say sort of because some of the links are still a little bit wonky, and I'll get into why, but I think it's come a long way, and I'm really happy with the progress that I've been making. So, some of those obstacles and challenges. So when I transferred from CodePen to GitHub, there were a few things that got lost in translation, and the way that GitHub works is I think it's honestly just me not knowing how GitHub works as opposed to CodePen and using Visual Studio Code as an IDE, because I just had to update some things that I didn't think I would have to update. So it was a little bit messy there. And then Google APIs are a struggle for me. They are challenging because, and most of this comes with trying to figure out Google Pay and figuring out how to test a system that would let people pay with credit card or debit card. And then dual URL routing is a pain. This is one of the things that has challenged me most in this project, because I want a client-facing site, but I also want a user-facing site. And so I didn't want to break that down into two separate websites, so I have to have them linked together somehow, but I have to be careful with the way that they link to each other, and so that's been kind of a pain, not only in the CSS and styling, but in the overall structure of the site as well. So, did it work? I think that there was some really, really good peer feedback at the beginning with peers and classmates, and I really appreciated that, and some of the direction that they provided really helped me along the way. CodePen did allow me rapid visual prototyping, so I think I would stick with that in the future when I'm doing my coding projects, just because it's easier for me and I like it. And then focusing on function over form, I didn't do the CSS until nearly the last few steps, and I think that focusing on links and figuring out how the site flows was a lot more important to me than the overall aesthetic until later. What I do differently, I would try to figure out that URL routing architecture a little bit earlier, and I think part of this comes back to my wireframing. I think if I had spent a little bit more time on the wireframes and figuring out exactly how I was going to organize this website, it would go a little bit better. I think that designing API fallbacks was more important than I realized. Like, if something fell through, I should have had a placeholder or an ability at least to test things, or I should have had other APIs that I could fall back on in the case that Google Pay didn't work or other site functionality didn't work. I think I should have spent more time brainstorming because this site was ambitious. I think that there could have been an easier solution to the site that I suggested that didn't have me focusing on these URL breakdowns and these APIs, and that still would have been a great project to do as a senior project. So I think spending a little bit more time there would have been well worth the effort. And then code for mobile first. I ignored everything my professors told me, which was to code mobile first, and I'm paying for it because figuring out how to do mobile last is a pain. So testing and refining. I got some great feedback from peers as seen here, and I'll give you kind of the summary of what they said. So the good. There was a lot of positive. Everyone seemed to kind of like what was going on there. They liked how it functioned like a normal website. They liked the aesthetic of it overall, and they liked some of the things that I added in, like different currencies and the ability to see things visually clearly. There was one feedback early on that said I should make the pricing very clear, and so I think I did that on the example on the left. I think the pricing is a lot more clear now as to what people are getting and what they get when they pay the specific prices. The bad, and this isn't actually that bad, but it is something that I'm still having to work on, is that a lot of the feedback said part of a solution to one of the problems I have might be to utilize Stripe instead of Google Pay because Stripe has some testing features, and they do, but trying to implement that insight is turning out to be a little bit harder than I had imagined. And then the ugly. There are some color issues. This is one of those things that I will fix, but it will be one of the last things that I fix because it is an easier fix than the rest. And when I say this is the color that no one likes, I'm talking about not the orange circle, but it's pointing to the color that no one likes, which is that tan in the middle there. And really, no one likes it, and that's fine. I'm going to change it. I just haven't yet. Thank you. And then stick around for the minimum viable product display. So here we are on my GitHub, Jiva 11 GitHub.io punchline. So I transferred everything to GitHub. A lot of this works. You can plug this in. If I did this and I click login, it won't work. I'd have to actually use a login password. Now I don't have a warning that comes up yet, but it's nice. If I don't have an account, I can create an account. A lot of these are starting to work now. I can click punchline and I come back to the beginning, which took a little while to figure. The logo didn't want to work for a long time. I can now see my pricing. I can now switch and it actually updates. If I'm already a member, I can log in. If I come back, I can sign up again. Next, my comedy. If I type in my comedy styles, I can click all these, add them. I don't have to click any of this yet. I can sign up. You already are opted in to the newsletter, but then there's a notification that pops up with the create my account. And right now, this is how I link to getting to the home of the second page, which is the user facing, so this is what you would see. These are all the things that you could create. So the idea is that once you come here, you are presented with everything that you can customize. So as the comedian, you could customize this. Come back to home, go to events. You could customize all this. Go to the community. You could customize that. Come to your merch. You could customize all this, right? I finally ended up building the product pages. This took a little while to get to work on GitHub specifically. I don't know why. And I'm still working with Stripe because Google Pay doesn't work. I do have, once you do place an order, that you get some type of confirmation and it takes you back to the home page. This is where I'm at right now. There's still a lot of things to fix, but I am on my timeline that I proposed at the beginning. Things are coming along. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.